I can't get him, man. He's out of range with this thing.
Not for me. Today on Grand Thumb, the designated marksman's rifle. Should you own a designated marksman's rifle? Well, here on Grand Thumb, we believe that the designated marksman's rifle is the cure to male loneliness. In all reality, the designated marksman's rifle, or DMR, is an extremely handy tool to have with you. It's not something you're going to use for self-defense. How'd you put it, Micah?
Unfortunately, 1,300 yards away doesn't count for self-defense in court. You're going to prison.
There are a lot of interesting notes to make on the DMR. In this video, we're going to be having a bunch of different good DMRs with good optics. We're explaining a lot of the basics, the capabilities, and why we think it's a really good choice to have for when things really go south. Today in Grand Thumb, please join us as we talk about the designated marksman's rifle. But before we get into it, we of course have to thank the biggest sponsor of the channel is who, Micah?
The Primary Arms, providing you with any DMR optics and Skittles that you could ever need.
Precisely. They have a ton of different optics, from name brands to their own brands, that we very much so recommend. Go and check them out. We can't say enough good things about them. And of course, if you're looking to get into night vision, we have to recommend Night Vision Network. You can buy, you can rent for whatever type of activities you have, such as exploring your mom's basement when it's too dark. And the reason we recommend night vision is because if you use a flashlight to try to find your enemies, you're giving away your position to other men, and that's gay, as we know. So please go and check out Night Vision Network. Get your favorite night vision out there. We love them. If you want to get better at shooting, we recommend dry fire. Mantis is the best way to do this. We recommend Mantis. Turns your weapon into a dry fire machine. Is super fun. And of course, all ammunition is provided for by AAC, which is a very good brand, and we love them very much. But as we always say, Micah, talk is cheap and ammunition is what?
Expensive.
Yeah, and sponsored by AAC. I'm sure a lot of you have asked the question, should I build a large frame AR? Should I buy some type of gas piston rifle that fires a .308 or a 6.5 Creedmoor? And you wonder, what is the implementation of these? What does it look like? What do the setups look like? What are the capabilities? And do we recommend it? And do we recommend it, Micah?
Absolutely. I just think there's a huge difference between military and civilian application with these guns.
100%. So talking a little bit into that about what a DMR is and what a DMR isn't. So a designated marksman's rifle comes from a military term. Specifically, a designated marksman's rifle is carried by a designated marksman. They're going to be operating as part of a platoon or a squad, and they're going to be extending the range past the range of the standard rifle that's issued. Now, in the case of civilian usage, you and your buddies are typically running, let's say, 14.5 to 16-inch ARs. A DMR is going to be able to extend the range past the 500-ish to 600-yard range of those 5.56 guns and be able to reach well out to 900, 1,000, perhaps even 1,400, depending on the calibers that you're using. In addition to that, they also offer increased penetration through lots of different types of barriers, as well as increased lethality at further ranges. Now, as far as the difference between a designated marksman's rifle and a sniper rifle, because Micah, what is this right here?
That is the auto sniper.
That's the auto sniper. It really does come down to implementation. There are many DMRs that can look like a sniper rifle and indeed can be employed in that way. You have to understand that a sniper in military terminology is typically a two-man team, a sniper and a spotter. They're disrupting enemy lines. They are taking out certain targets. So it's more about roles that they're filling rather than a hard definition of which rifle is a DMR versus a sniper rifle. Now, the first thing that we do want to show you today is going to be the accuracy that we can see from different types of DMRs that we generally recommend. We have a lot of brands here. We have a lot of setups here. We're going to be showing you different brands, different setups, the capabilities, what's good about certain ones, what's bad about certain ones, and differences in caliber and how they perform at distance. We'll be performing a whole lot of tests to include penetration, and we'll be giving you a full-fledged beginner's intro to the DMR that can get you started in that journey to maybe begin to set up something that could be extremely useful in certain circumstances. Please don't shoot somebody at 100 yards from your doorstep. So a DMR isn't specifically more accurate than AR-15, but what it can do is with the heavier profile barrel, it will hold accuracy longer as well as the bullets can fly further because we are firing a much heavier caliber, in this case 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor. Now for today's test, we are running the 168 grain Sierra Match Kings loaded by AAC. We have a very low SD, which is standard deviation, which is what you want if you want good accuracy. You don't want a lot of difference in feet per second between each round to ensure it's hitting roughly the same spot for your zero. The heavier projectiles are going to be less affected by wind. It's just going to be more predictable in most situations to ensure that you can get those consistent impacts. As well, our 308 and a 6.5 have better ballistic coefficients compared to 5.56. That means the round's going to fly better. All these combined, you have a round that's going to consistently impact these targets with better precision and better accuracy compared to the 5.56. Right here we have a LaRue OBR. This is going to be the first rifle that we're testing. No suppressor on this one, but most of our rifles do have a suppressor. We're going to go ahead, we're going to be grouping it at 100, and we'll see what the inherent accuracy is with a lot of these different platforms. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna group these different rifles that we have up here. We have a bunch of different ones. Now the best grouper that we have on the team is of course Micah. Micah, are you ready to group these guys?
I'm beyond ready.
We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna start with the LaRue OBR, which is Micah's favorite gun because it looks cool.
It's a vibe. Yeah. That's
SDs.
kind of curious about this one. Wow, yeah, she did great too.
Next up, we have the Seekins SP10M, which we found to be a phenomenally accurate and precise rifle. There are some drawbacks to it, which we'll talk about as we get into the talking portion, but this weapon is well vetted within the military, and I'm excited to see the grouping with it. How about you, Micah?
Oh, that's my personal rifle, so...
We both have Seekins SP10Ms, and every time we come out with it, we're like, damn Seekins.
Yeah, I love that
doing
thing. Nice.
Dude, that SD is so nasty on those 308 rounds.
7.6.
Right here we have the L&T Mars H. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult simply because we are running an LPVO on this, so it's not as magnified. Makes it a little bit harder to get these really teeny tiny little groups that we're getting with these other rifles. We do have another review on a 6.5 L&T that I've done earlier in the channel with Kevin Owens, and that one grouped sub-MOA. Nonetheless, we are going to group it today, and that's all on Micah to perform well with the 8X optic. So good luck, buddy. We do love the L&T. Just like the LaRue, I would classify the L&T as a combat gassed rifle, which means they're both gonna recoil harder, and the idea being that they punch through any of that carbon, dirt, mud that they might get in the system in a combat situation. It's gonna recoil harder. How'd you do?
She did good. It was definitely harder to group with. This is probably gonna have the worst group. I had to kind of zero it, put some rounds on it before doing the group, but I also have an 8X scope, so.
This is probably one of my favorites. This is the MR762A1. It is an HK417, basically. And for whatever reason, it just tends to do really well. It is chambered in 308. This is also the rifle that is in use with the United States military as their standard DMR. We have pretty much the same setup with the exception that we do have a German rail on there, same can and all that kind of stuff. It should perform pretty well. It does have a shorter barrel compared to all the ones that we have up there, and it kind of almost falls into the battle rifle role in many ways, which we'll talk about more later.
Something really weird happened.
What happened?
It grouped exceptionally well, and then it threw one probably 9 inches.
Interestingly, we are having troubles with the HK-MR762A1. We're gonna have to send that back into the factory because despite it being torqued down, everything's good to go. Here are our first 4 rounds, and our 5th round is just a massive flyer, and we seem to have that repeated. From here, we have the, that's a really good group with an 8X, by the way. Yeah, that's 8X from the L&T. It would be even tighter with a greater magnification of suppressor, good shooting man. Starting up here, we have the LaRue. Center punch one of the rounds straight through the first run, so that was wonderful shooting right there. So we have our group from LaRue. Pretty much all of our groups from every DMR is an MOA or less. So those are our groups right there. As you can see, each weapon printed really well. Let's go ahead, let's do a little bit of recoil comparison and see how each of these look compared to each other as far as how they sit in the shoulder after you fire. Cool, we're gonna start with the recoil of a typical 5.56. This is just a SIG MCX, so you can see what the recoil looks like on our beloved little light round. Very light recoil, very easy to control. So 5.56, typically 55 grain to 77 grain, traveling around between 24 to up to 2,800 feet per second with up to a 16-inch barrel. Compare that to our 308s, our 6.5s are pushing 25 to 2,600, maybe even 27 on certain types of projectiles. Much heavier, with about the same speed or even more speed, and you're going to see the recoil difference between them. So having a recoil that's not too stout is going to make me much more effective as a shooter. You can train through heavy recoil, but just having a gun that recoils well is nice. We'll be starting with the LaRue OBR, which is the hardest gas gun. It is in the unsuppressed setting, as a quick note. Nice and stout. If I load into the bipod, that means I dig that bipod in the ground and I push forward on the gun. I can control it a lot more. Despite that, I definitely have to work a little bit more to keep that LaRue on target. I do expect that it will power through literally any type of carbon, dust, or mud. Next up, we have the Robinson Arms XCR-M. This one is in 6.5. It should be noted that 6.5 does sport about 30% less recoil than a 308 and also can fly further. This is also a piston operated weapon, which also tends to recoil more because there's more mass traveling during the shooting. But because this is easily adjustable, there's a small adjustment point right up there, I can precisely gas this weapon to what I need, both suppressed and unsuppressed, to make my life a whole lot easier. You can also with the LaRue, but it's just 2 set points compared to this where I have a ton of different positions to get it completely dialed. So much easier to shoot. I've always been a big fan of 6.5 because of how easy it is to get back on target between shots. In addition to that, with both an adjustable gas system as well as a good suppressor, we have a Spectre Cat on the end right there. Right here we have the Seekins SP10M. This is a direct impingement system, just like the AR-15. But unlike a lot of those DI systems, it is adjustable. So I was just talking with Mike about it, but what's nice is that you can basically adjust the gas on this gun until it is just barely cycling. And you don't want it there because the gun, as it gets dirty, is going to begin to have problems. It's not going to feed correctly. But what he did after that is he put it 2 clicks over that to ensure that it was more gas than what is necessary. You can get these right on the edge and you can make them recoil less. The real trick is having it at that nice combat gas point where it can push through the various types of carbon and debris that you get in a muddy battlefield. Super pleasant to shoot. Right here we have the LMT Mars H. This one's in 6.5. Non-adjustable gas system. You get what you get. Micah on his has put in a KAK buffer system to help mitigate some of the recoil because Mars H is a little bit more stout. It is a very stoutly gas combat weapon.
Yeah.
It's
probably right up there with the LaRue.
Yeah, it's not terribly pleasant to shoot, but you know what? It will always run. Oh, got gas out on that one. So right here we have the HK MR762A1. Obviously we're having some issues with it, but we can still show recoil on it. We do have the Huxworks can. That way we're keeping that back pressure nice and low. That way it's not going to affect the bolt carrier speed as much. The 417 is kind of a weird system. It's both, you have both the buffer in the stock as well as the piston system. And together, it's slow. I find it very pleasant to shoot. I really do like this guy, and I'm disappointed that I'm having some issues with it, but that's life. We're now going to be showing you the absolute edge of the capabilities of these various calibers. We have 308 right here, which is a shorter range caliber than 6.5. Although, what do they call 308? 308?
308.
Now, as you can see, we're at 950 right there, and if you look all the way out at those white targets, it is quite a far distance. In fact, most people would say the ability to positively identify a threatening target is probably the edge of the range there of what you can effectively do if things were to get really bad. The point we want to make here is that, like, a lot of people go for the absolute distance. Like 6.5 is very alluring because you're like, I have a 1,200 to 1,400 yard range, but it's really going to depend on your terrain and where you're at. If you're in an area where you don't have sight lines beyond 500 to 600, then you really don't need the range on it. And even out here in the beautiful foothills of Idaho, 950 is a pretty far stretch depending on the area you're at. But we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take the Seekins out, 950, see if we can get those impacts. We have crazy winds out here, which is a lot of the beauty of 308, is that it can handle them. Are we recording on everything, Micah?
You good?
You know what, we'll
nice.
take it.
3 out of 4 right there?
I'll take it.
What's the range?
950. So we're definitely at the edge of 308, and it definitely is more difficult. That being said, it should be noted how bad the wind is out here, especially down through the valley. The round's got it. It can resist the wind, which is what's really important about the 308. The 6.5 will also do that while retaining a little bit better speed downrange. In fact, it ends up being faster than the 308, but like the joke we made before, that deer's gonna run. Just kidding, it's gonna put a human down, no problem. Let's try out the 6.5. That was like 3 impacts in a row. Did you hear that? I think it comes down to what I kind of talked about before, where the 6.5 just has that less recoil. And for me, it's just easier to get it onto target. So we've shot both the 6.5 as well as the 308 at about the edge of 308's distance at about 950. Between the two, it's definitely easier with the 6.5 Creedmoor. I like the round quite a bit, as much as we've kind of dogged on it. And I also love 308. They each have their purpose and the things that they're good at. So from here, what we want to go over is going to be the setups and the implementations of these rifles in various scenarios, and why you might choose one or the other, and how you might set them up. The last thing we'll kind of leave with that Mike has kind of mentioned is that 6.5 does have a very light recoil impulse comparatively to 308. And for me, that makes it easier to quickly get those follow-up shots if I don't have that impact dead on that first shot, and that's going to be somewhat common with the DMR. Not that you're missing, it's just you're going to need to follow up given the distances that you're shooting at, just because it is difficult to make those impacts. So I do like it quite a bit. Let's go ahead, let's go down. Next up, we're going to be showing penetration capability. We have a very nice car right there, Volkswagen.
Are those good? Tiguan.
Hey, you were a mechanic. Are those good cars?
No.
Well,
if you like check engine lights, they're good cars.
That's like for the 308. Actually, let's open the car door and see how it's doing. And we have a clean exit. I'm very interested to see what happened on the other side. And it looks like you're dead. Inhale. It's glass. It's good for you. Impacts. And okay, I see. Okay, so first off, come over to this side over here, Micah. You definitely did not want to be sitting in the seat right here if you take a look. Oh shit! Look, it exited out through the windshield.
Yeah, 4 of them.
Oh no, look, the slugs are, there's a slug right there. Or a part of the slug. That's hot, yeah. So, looks like we have a piece of fragmented 308 going through there. Looks like they certainly had enough energy to impact the windshield, but they did not go through.
I wonder if we shoot the front windshield, if it'll go out, or the back windshield, it'll go out the front windshield.
Oh yeah, I 100% believe it will. Oh yeah. And then the round broke apart right here. and exit through the front windshield. Don't get shot by 308. Now, this video is sponsored by Dead Air, and they make suppressors, and they want us to tell you a little about some of their new suppressor tech that they have coming to the market. First can we're talking about is the Lazarus 6. Now, here on the channel, me, Micah, everybody, we're all big fans of 6mm arc, and we are excited to see cans like this coming to the market. Now, specifically, Dead Air has a new technology of a gas management system. This is going to lower the back pressure, keep the acoustic performance manageable for a system that's going to keep a lower back pressure. This is going to help with parts wear and many of those issues of over-gassing. Next can we're talking about is the Nomax 338. Fits 8.6. We're big fans of 8.6. As you can see here, we're firing both the Lazarus 6 as well as the Nomax 338 on an 8.6 XCR running subsonic ammunition, and boy, does it sound good. We love 8.6, and we want to give a big thank you to Dead Air for sponsoring this video. Keep the content flowing. Give them a big thank you. Go and check them out. Guys, back to designated marksman's rifles. A lot of shooting, a lot of demonstration. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna talk. Why do you, as a civilian, as a prepared citizen of the United States, or wherever else you are able to get your hands on firearms, why do you need one of these? Why do you need a DMR? I think the DMR is an extremely useful tool, especially when you don't have other types of fire support. So when you think about the military, having rockets and airstrikes and a whole lot of stuff that covers a lot of different ranges. Well, as you, my friend, do not. You have to rely on the wit and the intelligence and the tactics of yourself. Having a DMR, somebody filling that designated marksman role, is going to be absolutely crucial. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go through these different builds. We're going to talk about the optics that we prefer, the rounds that we prefer, when these different setups are going to come into play and work well, and when they're not. One of the first things that I want to mention before we get really into everything is that an AR-15, I've shot pigs. You shot pigs with AR-15s, haven't you, Micah? Tons. But the 5.56 is not the best hunting round. But you know it is a good hunting round, 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. Both are very effective. So in not only being an effective fighting rifle, the DMR also makes for an effective hunting rifle, which makes it very useful in an end-of-world scenario. Now, going straight into it, the first thing that I want to talk about is going to be optics. When you talk about DMRs, you think that the DMR is expensive. The optic is probably the most expensive part of your weapon. These Leupold Mark Vs right here are regularly running north of 5K. Micah has like a super nice tan one. How much was it, like 3,500, dude?
I have no, yeah, a lot, too much.
It's embarrassing. It's too much. It's too much. The glass, the quality of glass, and the amount of engineering that needs to go through, and the quality control, means that good optics are typically going to cost you a lot. So the first note that we'll make is that kind of the gold standard in our minds is going to be the Leupold Mark V. We do love them quite a bit. They tend to perform extremely well, and they come in at a price point that's good for us. I have a 3.6 to 18. Micah's got the 25X up on his. The glass quality, the glass clarity, the edge-to-edge clarity, the colors, the light transmission is all phenomenal on the Leupolds, and we cannot recommend them enough. We would call them the gold standard by which all the other optics are kind of judged by, going from there. Now, there are more expensive optics. You can spend a lot more. But as far as what we're concerned with what you need to get the job done, the Leupold Mark V is well proven in combat and within the civilian sector. As far as the reticles that we typically use, you can see it going through the scope cam on this, but we like to use some type of Christmas tree reticle. Tremor 3, Horus, whatever it might be, we tend to go towards a Horus, and we mostly like a first focal plane optic. So a first focal plane means that when you pull up magnification on your optic, you're not just, you know, zooming in on the target, you're also zooming in on the reticle itself. This means that my zeros are the same across the way. There's no math that I have to get into, which as I'm dialing is really important. Some people do prefer a second focal plane, but for us and for many other professionals that I talk to, I think that the first focal plane remains king. Micah, you like the first focal plane, don't you?
That's pretty much all I use exclusively.
We do tend to dial, and what that means is on the top right here of your optic, you have your elevation turret. The elevation turret is going to be in mil or MOA. We tend to use mil in our experience because we like to be able to measure off those mils and to be able to determine distance through our optic if at all possible. Now, it's nice to have some type of locking turret or something that gives you an indication of how many clicks you're going. There's a lot of different kind of ways you can go about that. The loophole's great. You can dial it as needed, and then there's a zero stop, which means that you can't go past a certain point. And it will also give you indications if you've done more than one rotation. And that's true for many of the optics that we're going to be talking about. Now, going from there, there's a lot of different setups, but I like to have some type of red dot on there. It can be for close shooting, but mostly what I use it for is to quickly get on target. When you're up at 11 or 12 power on your optic and you're trying to find a target, it can be difficult. It's nice to be able to have that red dot roll over to it and then quickly pop back up right onto it. So I really like to have some type of dot. I find it very versatile in my opinion, and it's what I like. We have ours in the Badger mounts. That's primarily what we're using. We're using a couple spur mounts as well, but from there, we do have our diving board up here. A lot of people are wondering what the diving board is for, and we can actually just take a look at Micah's setup right here, and you can see that Micah has a rangefinder and a ballistic calculator right here on his optic. These are very useful. This is a Vortex. Wilcox also makes one, but we use that mostly in our spotting scope. It's always going to be a choice whether or not you have this on here. It is going to give off visible IR light, so this is typically used ahead of time to range as necessary, but it is very helpful in certain situations. I tend to carry my laser rangefinder off board just on my body, just a normal one that I use, but these definitely work, and the addition of the ballistic calculator makes it very easy. You laser it and it gives you your exact holds, which is very nice. The Vortex also allows you to input multiple rifles, multiple barrel lengths. It's very full featured. They're both really good in my opinion. The only complaints I've ever heard about the Vortex are battery life, but that's something you can carry a spare battery. It's not that big of a deal, and you shouldn't be using this that much. A lot of people for the calculations tend to use a small Kestrel. Those are also good because they can give you wind calls as well. There's a lot when it comes into this long range shooting. We're not going to get too in depth other than to say that if you can range through your reticle itself, that is probably the best way to do it. Walter Sobchak has some great tools for that. We also have some tools coming out with them that will help you do that. Now, going from loophole, the other optic that you can see that we're mostly using is Night Force. We love Night Force. The ATACR is a wonderful optic, albeit it has a worse eye box, but it is a very tough optic. From there, I can't really recommend enough if you don't have a whole lot of cash to drop on an optic to consider Primary Arms or the Vortex Viper series. I think that they're both really excellent. They provide a lot of value for the money. You're not going to get as good of an optic, but it's certainly going to do the job for you. It's just understand that you're not getting the clarity that you're getting from these higher priced optics. So that's enough on optics right there. Let's go ahead and let's talk about caliber for a moment. I think there's two big arguments for caliber. When it comes to a DMR, I would really consider it to be an argument between 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. There are a million calibers out there, and everyone can argue for 6.7, 69, you know, bushwhacker or some weird thing that pushes XYZ just a little bit further. That really doesn't matter as much to me. If I have a round that performs relatively well and I can get a lot of it for a good price, that's where my head's mostly at. And that's why I like 308 quite a bit. 308 is a very capable caliber, doesn't fire as far as 6.5 Creedmoor, but it's proven. It has an excellent ability to put humans into the ground. And in addition to that, it's fairly easy to get cheap but extremely accurate 308. The AAC ammo comes in at a very reasonable price. Federal gold medal match comes in at a very reasonable price. I can get a lot of it. It matters a lot more to me that I can buy a lot and shoot a lot rather than having some wonder round that is, you know, 500 feet per second more faster and slightly more accurate. Shoot more. That's going to certainly make more of an impact on your abilities than having some super wonder round. You tend to agree with that, Micah?
Yeah, agreed.
People focus so much on like weird calibers, and that's where development occurs. It's just for your consideration, I would stick to 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor. Barrel lengths on 308. So right here on the MR762A1, of course we had some problems with it today. That's not, stuff happens. This is a 16-inch barrel. That's about as short as you'd want to go on a 308. You can go shorter, but in a DMR roll, to make sure that we are having good powder burn, good stabilization of the projectile. That's about as short as we want to go. What I think something like this would work really well at is going to be more of an urbanized situation. So you don't need quite as much speed, you don't need quite as much range on your rifle, but you need the ability to extend your range and to have something that can punch through cover at those longer distances. Hey, city blocks can be far. House to house down like a residential neighborhood can be far shots. So this is where this really excels. This is kind of like the jack of all trades, the master of none. This tends to be a really good rifle in my opinion. And as far as suppressors go, we generally recommend suppressors. We recommend anything from the Huxworks or the Cats, the Spectre Cat. We also have Liberty Precision, correct, Micah?
Yep, Liberty Precision. That's the Mach L.
That one's super quiet. Tons of great suppressors out there. But from here, you also have longer barrel lengths, such as we have on the LaRue. This is going to enable you to shoot out to further distances. So something like intermediate mountain terrain or something like that, this is going to be a great platform to run. And then if you really want to push 308 to the furthest it can possibly go, you have something like the Seekins with a full 20-inch plus barrel. This is going to ensure full powder burn on your 308, but it's going to come at a cost. You have a fairly long, relatively heavy rifle. Work out more and it won't be as big of a deal. But just understand that there's no free lunch anywhere. There's no, what is it? There's nothing's free in Waterworld. Don't say it. Nothing's free in Waterworld. And you're gonna have to choose something that suits your needs. This is not a situation where I say, if you don't have this build, then you're wrong. Because so many of these are good, you just have to pick what's gonna work for where you live. Now, going from there, we of course do have 6.5 Creedmoor. Tends to be the round that I go for the most because it's just a laser beam. It's good out to the distances that I want to shoot to. I'm not even shooting it to the full potential. I typically shoot it out to about 1,000. It's an absolute laser beam. There's less guesswork. There's less holdover because there's less of a tendency of the round to drop as much as a 308. This isn't me saying that 308 is a bad caliber. It's just for the terrain that we're in, I really do like a longer barreled 6.5 Creedmoor. This is a really good option as a designated marksman's rifle for the area that we live in. But the problem with 6.5 Creedmoor is going to be availability. 6.5 Creedmoor is a lot more available nowadays, but understand that no matter what, you're going to be able to find 308 absolutely everywhere. 6.5 is going to be a little bit more dicey. You should, of course, stock up on your own ammo and not rely on, finding ammo somewhere. It's just one consideration of many. Again, 6.5 Creedmoor does recoil less. It does weigh less. It's easy to carry more because this ammo does get heavy fairly quick. So 308 weighs a lot. So a lot of people ask, why not just use like a 25 or 30 round mag on these? Well, one, it tends to extend down further, makes it more of a pain in the ass. Using a bipod, think about most of your shooting from DMRs from a kneeling position, from a position of support, and it just becomes kind of a hindrance in addition to the length of magazine needed to get that many rounds. I do see some people running the Magpul 25 rounders. It's just we don't personally. The last consideration is going to be something like this 6.5 Creedmoor that we have right here. This one is a shorter barrel of 16 inches, but what's great is from 14.5 to 16 inches, on a 6.5 Creedmoor, you're getting about the same ballistics as a 308 out of a 20-inch barrel. So there's a lot of good arguments for running a 6.5 Creedmoor. It can certainly make sense in many situations, and in fact, within the Air Force, within Special Warfare, the 14.5 6.5 Creedmoor was chosen as a weapon to be carried within that organization simply because of how versatile it is. Now, we've talked a lot about caliber, we've talked about barrel length. Let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of some of these rifles. And we'll start with this LMT right here. In fact, Micah has something that's really cool. Do you want to go ahead and change it and show them?
Sure.
So what's really cool about the LMT is that when we have these larger calibers, something that we can do fairly easily is convert them. So as you can see, Micah right here is loosening up these nuts right here on the rail.
So got the second screw out, take that out, and boom, your barrel's out. It's super easy to take out, super easy. All you would do then is grab your other barrel, slot it in there,
Tighten it down.
And now without swapping guns, you just have a 308.
And what's nice about this is when we talk about DMRs, a lot of people are going to bring up the FAL, the G3. Those have served in DMR roles. However, given their inherent accuracy, they've been massively outclassed by modern day weapons. So it's not something that we typically recommend because they can't fill that role really well. However, your DMRs, especially like the XCR and this LMT right here, can very easily fill a battle rifle role, which is a large calibered weapon in 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor, semi-automatic, made for shorter range engagements. That kind of fills the role of what you consider your typical combat fighting rifle, like an assault rifle. So by coming back down to a shorter barrel length, you have a very capable weapon. So that's kind of the nice thing about both the LMT that we have right here, as well as the XCR. But let's continue talking a little bit about the LMT. The LMT is very nicely manufactured. Very easy to swap barrels. That quick change process truly is quick. And of all the 308s that we've fired, we find that the LMTs tend to just always function really well. They are overgassed, but if you have a rifle that's combat rated, you do want that thing to always cycle, and they tend to do that. In addition to that, the controls are just AR-15-like, so it's very easy to know what you're doing and to very easily pick it up from coming from the AR-15 platform over to the LMT. You'll see that the LMTs are also monolithic. That means the upper receiver is connected to the rail. That makes for a very stable platform when you're mounting any type of thermals, night vision, laser devices, anything like that. It's one reason why we like the LMTs quite a bit. As you can see, this gentleman also typically recommends the LMT as well compared to a Knight's Armament rifle.
What? Which one? Knight's Armament or LMT? LMT. Oh, damn!
So that's our LMT right here. We'll go over to the other 6.5 that we have right here, and it should be noted the LMT can be easily changed to another caliber. You don't have to change bolt heads or anything like that. We have an XCR. The XCR is one singular bolt just on the bottom. Once you loosen that, pull the barrel out and change to any caliber, any length, just like the LMT. Now from here, we have the XCR from Robinson Arms. I love this rifle quite a bit. This can also be changed. You simply loosen up this nut right here at the bottom. The whole barrel pulls right out. Put whatever you want in there, 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, 8.6, whatever, and pop the new one in. Very simple change. I find these to be very, very nice. And in addition, what I really like about it, and Micah, if you'll get some B-roll of this right here, we have this adjustable gas system right here. It's very easy to adjust the gas to get it precisely where I need it to be. Every ammo is loaded differently, and with a suppressor, depending on the type of technology that you have behind it, is going to increase your bolt carrier speed at a certain amount. This allows you to dial it in to precisely what you need, which is one reason why I really like the XCR. The XCR is a piston-driven system, and it's just smooth. I like it quite a bit, and it tends to fulfill the accuracy that I need very, very well. From here, we're going to go to probably one of the Gucciest DMRs that we have, which is the Seekins. This is a 308. This is something where you're not going to be able to quick change the barrel out in the field. The barrels can be changed. It's a little bit more involved, and it does also have an adjustable gas system, so you can get this thing dialed into precisely where you want. Of all the weapons here, I would say that the Seekins has been the most accurate rifle that we have. And in fact, Micah, we've gotten this thing to print like 0.7, 0.6. An incredible design, incredible rifle, very reliable, and combat tested in use with multiple militaries and people that we can't actually talk about. So we do have the Seekins SP10. Right here we have the tried and true LaRue OVR. This is a classic gun. This one has been around for a little bit. You have suppressed and unsuppressed settings, and it's combat gas. It's a very strong rifle, and it tends to just hold its accuracy for a long time. These are also very well proven within the combat sphere, and this is something that I would definitely trust my life to, because these just, like the LMT, they tend to run. They're going to buck you a little bit harder, but that's life. Finally, the last one we're going to be talking about here is going to be our MR762A1, which really disappointed me today, having some issues. Which it makes it weird to say this, but it is typically a very reliable and a very accurate and precise weapon. We've had very good luck with it before. Everything will break at some point, but being a piston system, these tend to run longer with suppressors, just like the XCR. And the reason for that is you're not dumping that gas directly into the receiver. Because of that, I find these weapons phenomenal. I tend to like them. I err towards both the XCR or the MR762A1 in my shooting of DMRs for that reason. The MR762A1 is proprietary in many ways. If you'll notice, most of these rifles can run either PMags or Stoner SR25 mags. Compare that to the MR762A1, the pain in the ass about it is it does have to use these proprietary HK mags, which are very reliable, very robust. However, they're huge compared to like your typical Stoner mag. I'll pop one of those out right now. You'll see that it's just thicker and just bigger overall. The problem with that is it makes it hard to fit those magazines into pouches. Now, right here we have our Onward Research, I'm gonna plug my own product, our Onward Research Heavy Placard, which is gonna be coming out very, very soon. And it fits those, no problem, but generally finding magazine carriers for that is difficult. In addition, you can carry a full 6 mags on our placard.
That's a whole lot of hate.
It's a lot of 3.0 hate right there. You can't say that for every micro rigger out there, right? But I guess if you're not strong, I wouldn't recommend buying our placard. Okay, that's enough of that. So we've talked about the different DMRs. We've talked about the different situations where they're going to be good. I guess what we're going to end with is precision rifle shooting is getting more popular. Shooting distance is getting more popular, and we're all about it. I think there's more of an emphasis on PRS than there is on DMRs right now, and I think we should put more emphasis on DMRs. I find DMRs to be probably a more pertinent skill set given the types of conflicts that could possibly occur. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at not only some of the rifles that we have here, but the variety of different DMR type rifles in 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor that you have out there.
I mean, it doesn't mean a battle rifle. A G3 doesn't count.
Exactly, like we talked about, G3 FAL, don't recommend it. Even the PSG-1, which is a $35,000 G3, still had issues keeping up with any of these rifles right here. So it's not something that we're going to recommend. Buy yourself one of these. Of all your buddies, make sure at least one of them has one of these. The last thing that you want to happen is to get engaged by something that completely outranges you and your buddies, where you have to maneuver to get into range of somebody shooting at you, and you have no way of putting either harassing fire or lethal fire on those individuals. Guys, train. Especially when it comes to long range, probably one of the hardest shooting disciplines you'll get into. There's a lot to it. We've only barely scratched the surface. We'll be doing more videos on DMRs in the future. Put your thoughts right below. I know we have a lot of hogs out there. We got a lot of pigs. Get in there, guys. Explain. Tell them your opinion. We love it. We appreciate you guys. And finally, last thing for you guys, dad advice for today. Make sure that you're not terminally online, because what's real online is not real in real life.
Just Google the dead internet theory, Mike. Have you Googled that?
No,
one?
what's that?
Like 60% of the content that you're interacting with today is fake. It's just all AI. And even the comments are AI responding to other AI.
I believe that. I believe that. It's worse than the Matrix could have ever. Yeah. The Wachowski, are they women now? Wachowski sisters now from the Matrix.
Did
the
they
directors.
Change?
Yeah.
They did the thing.
If you don't have this build, then you're wrong. We tend to edge. Inhale. It's glass. It's good for you. Edge